Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the exciting science behind HRV and how you can apply it to your own health and the work that you do. Just a note, this podcast does not replace medical advice, and if you're going to apply this to your own life or others, please consult with a medical provider. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. This is Jeff Summers here, joined by my partner in crime, Matt Bennett.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Matt. Today, we're going to focus on sleep. It's a topic near and dear to my heart, Matt. But before we jump in, how are things? How's Sarah doing back in school?
Hey, it's first graders in a room and she hasn't brought back COVID yet. So
good deal.
Seems like good. I heard something news. It doesn't seem like schools are the super spreaders we might be worried about, which is good. So just still kind of holding our breath. But yeah, she comes home and, jumps straight in the shower. So so no COVID yet being brought home. As our listeners might know, I may have had it. I don't know if that makes me immune. But she's back and it's
now you're 8 months later.
Yeah, exactly. The kids are, I think, really loving it. So yeah, the whole, it was just like the first few grades in elementary. So next week the whole school's back in, so that will double the amount of snotty kids trying to wear masks. So
more than double, right? It's kindergarten, first and second grade, and now you're going to get all the way through sixth.
Yeah, fifth. Yeah. So
fifth. That's right, fifth.
Yeah. So it'll inject quite a few more germ bugs into that school. So I'm just waiting for her to bring home the normal germs she brings home. Maybe the mask will help that. So
yeah, well, we'll see what Denver does after the press conference yesterday. Sounds like we're getting close to another lockdown. So we'll see what Boulder does as well.
Wear your masks.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Please. Yeah.
So sleep, like I said, a topic near and dear to my heart with a toddler and a newborn at home. It's a commodity that is in high demand at the Summers household. But let's talk Pearson's Law first.
Yes.
Because I think it's a great way to start this conversation. I think everybody can understand and relate to sleep deprivation and knowing they need to be better about how they take care of their bodies at night. But Pearson's Law, that which is measured improves.
Yes.
Which I think is really interesting. And frankly, before we started this whole journey a year ago, or more than a year ago now, I probably would have said, yep, that makes sense, but not to the extent to which I understand it now that I'm measuring things.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that law. I mean, you're obviously very familiar with it. So maybe you can sort of define it and get into a little more detail for the listeners.
Yeah, and it's something in my work in the nonprofit healthcare arena around quality that sort of a phenomenon that we see is that, where you put the lens, so to speak, the microscope, and say, how are we doing in this area? There's a natural thing of focus goes into that area. So something with HRV that really appealed to me, and it's sort of almost a side product of it, but it's so powerful, I think, that it's such a big benefit, is taking 3 minutes at least a day. If you think about just taking a morning reading, and as an individual, basically you're focused on your wellness, right? You're taking 3 minutes. I wake up and I get feedback, and this will lead us into our topic today, is how restorative was my sleep? What kind of energy do I have to give to my day? So one of the powerful things about HRV, and again, it's kind of this side effect of it, but is that, hey, I start my day every day of the week measuring my wellness. So I have some tangible data about how am I doing, and I can look at what's improving my HRV score, what is decreasing my HRV score, and So, that's a big part of it. And then the second part of the law, that which is major and reported improves exponentially, is the other key piece of this too. When you think about this for organizations, groups, we've talked a lot about patient caseloads, client caseloads, those sort of things as well, is that if we're sharing our HRV with somebody, again, that there's a recognition
aspect.
that if I'm, sharing my HRV with you, Jeff, every day, we have a meeting, I got some accountability, right? If we got a big presentation you give, there's accountability that, hey, we've got this wellness solution out there. Better be living it as much as we can ourselves.
Gotta walk the walk, right?
Yeah. So if you got some folks, looking at your score, we would expect an even greater jump than that. And this has been proven out. They call it a law for a reason. A lot of the work in quality, whether it's total quality management, Six Sigma, you focus on something, there's going to be a natural improvement of it. And when you're talking about your own wellness, hey, what a great thing. You could get the small price we ask people to pay for our app. You're getting probably a lot of just benefits of that through, a 3-minute focus on wellness to the start of your day.
Well, and think about how many people that are listening to this in their professional lives are incredibly focused on metrics.
Yeah.
Right. And, I know for me, like before we got into this again, I wasn't doing any of that and applying any of that to my personal life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was focused very, very intently on specific things, KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, with my job, with the people that worked for me and all of the things, to ensure that we had a robust pipeline, we were selling software, we were meeting our numbers, we were reporting back to the board that we were growing, and all of those things. But that's your professional life,
right.
And so few people are applying the same sort of rigor to their own wellness.
Yeah.
But think about the repercussions of that.
Exactly. Well, and again, we've talked a little bit about this. I know we'll explore it in future episodes. Is the wellness probably is the foundation to predict a lot of that other stuff. Now, before HRV is, well, how does my sleep, how does my physical health, my psychological health improve your ability to close sales? It's well documented that in the mental health arena, as a therapist, my ability to socially engage, my mental health is going to impact incomes. But we're seeing this, right? If you don't get adequate sleep, if you're not eating a healthy diet, if you're not doing those, doing some movement, your performance is going to drop. But, one of the things we'll talk about with this is a lot of times we're the last ones to realize that our wellness is suffering. It's kind of like we are in this head, we see out of it. And, we may not realize that the engine that's helping to support our performance is suffering. We don't get that light that pops up.
We don't have a check engine light, right?
Yeah. Now, if you see your sales drop or, your client satisfaction drop, obviously you can get that feedback, but, oftentimes, again, these indicators.
It's too late. Those are symptoms. That's right.
Exactly.
Those are symptoms. So how much sleep do we need? Because this is something that, there's been tons of research on. I know you're up to date with all of it, because this is something that you're really focused on. Historically 6 hours was enough, and obviously everybody's different. And having 2 little kids in the house, I've realized that sleep needs vary dramatically sometimes between people. But what's enough?
So great question. So for the vast majority of us, there is some genetic variation here, which I'll talk to in a second, but 8 hours. That to me is becoming the more, used to kind of say 7 to 8. I've seen in the literature a little bit more towards dropping the 7 from that. Now, the question gets interesting. So let me throw the genetic variation out there. Is a small segment of the population that might only need 6 hours of sleep. I always say if you wake up refreshed, great job. Because
mission accomplished.
Yeah, because even if I get fair and I really focus on my sleep, I can't really tell you the last time I woke up incredibly refreshed. Like, just like, man, I could not sleep another minute. Like, so, I think for most of us, and I know I'm not alone with us, you should assume 8 hours of sleep, unless your body and your HRV is telling you differently. And that's the other thing as well. After and I've been on, as part of this HRV journey, I've been on some fairly sophisticated sleep monitors, and what I was surprised with is how many times this monitor said you need more than 8 hours of sleep, right? Whether it was I saw this a lot when I did full day trainings. I love doing it, but I'm exhausted afterwards. And often I'll get 9.5 hours, which means I need to be in bed for 10 hours. And I'm like, whoa, seriously,
how do I find the
time to go to bed, and, tell my dog that not to wake me up for her walk at 6 a.m. every day,
You just need to be like Sarah and go to bed at 8.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be good.
So there is that, to me, what that taught me is, as my HRV score gets lower, actually 8 hours might not be as much. And just to put this out too is time in bed does not equal sleep either. And we'll talk about some things that can improve quality of sleep, because if you're waking up 5-6 times during the night, whether it's just to go to the bathroom or you're not comfortable or you got a kid at home, boom, right? Then it's just going to take a little bit to fall back asleep. It's disrupting your REM sleep, which is crucial. That's the restorative sleep, both mentally and physically. That's where we create new growth hormones for our body to recover. So a lot of things are really tied into this. And, think about the HRV, how to measure it. With our app, you could take basically before you go to bed reading and a morning reading and really see that restorative nature of sleep and get start to measure sleep quality as well.
Yep. Yeah. And it's huge. I mean, someone who's suffered from sleep depravity over the last certainly year. But as anybody with a toddler knows, it's more than 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, more than just the last year. It's incredible to see the HRV scores that I get after a relatively good night of sleep or two versus a relatively bad night of sleep or two. I mean, it's literally half. I'll go from 20 or 25 to 70.
There's a reason why armies use sleep deprivation as a form. I won't say torture because I'd probably legally, but basically, if they want to get you worn down enough to give up information you don't want to give up, they basically recreate your sleep pattern, from what it sounds like. And, and people die from lack of sleep. There's a real threat. You look at some of these endurance, like somebody was doing a hot air balloon across, I think it was the North Pole for some reason I can't understand. Sleep and almost died because they had to stay awake or the balloon could crash.
Right.
For some reason you thought a hot air balloon over the pole was necessary for your life. So yeah, I mean, this is something in our society, I've watched this, Jeff, I don't know if we ever thought sleep was that important, but it's something we just devalued for so long. Even watching some of these business gurus, it's like, oh, only sleep 4 hours a night, and I'm like, we're supposed to worship you because of that. It's like, no, you're gonna die earlier than you need to. You're probably horrible to work with. It's this giving up sleep to do other things has been something we're supposed to praise someone for.
Right. They're stronger, they're better because, this translates into the medical profession. I know we've got a lot of clinicians and doctors and nurses that are listening, what kind of quality of care can we provide if we are sleep deprived?
And the medical profession's waking up to this, but they need to just like get a whole bunch of cold water splashed on them, is especially how we train medical students to work these incredible shifts, measuring error rates as sleep deprivation happens, puts people's lives at risk.
Yeah.
This like machismo or whatever the hell it is that, hey, if you don't go through this boot camp, you can't call yourself a physician. Well, one, physicians are the most burned out profession there are out there. So something's wrong with the medical education that does this. And I don't want you making life or death decisions on me if you haven't got a good night's sleep in 72 hours. So, it's just,
I don't want you performing surgery on, people coming into the ER.
Yeah, and you're supposed to help me be healthier. What are you like? Why are we, again, not to use the word lightly, but, people to get them to talk, torture, deprive people of sleep. And when you see these things mirrored in professional training environments, I just don't understand it. Like, again, it's not like you're preparing to jump up and fight a battle at 3 a.m. You're training to work a shift. Like, this is not
a scheduled shift.
Yeah. And just because somebody might not perform well in a totally illogical, unhealthy environment doesn't mean they won't be a good family practitioner somewhere along the line. Like, this has no relevance to your performance long-term as a medical professional. In fact, you may be burned out before you're, coming out of residency and not able to catch back up. And so, again, they're waking up to this, but there's a lot of ingrained thinking whenever you make a change. And hey, let's look at HRV. We've talked about this kind of ethical dilemma is, do you want your surgeon operate on you if their HRV is incredibly low? Do you want your pilot flying your plane? Do you want the police officer to go out on shift? There's a lot of data saying, no, we don't. Now, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about how you do that and run a hospital, run a police force, et cetera.
Right.
But if you're crashing someone's wellness intentionally as part of their training and they're making life or death decisions, what's risk management have to say about that? And again, folks are waking up to this, but we need to wake up now.
Right. We never should have gotten there.
Yeah, we know we have a shared. She was actually on my last podcast, so I'll call her Officer Riley. I've done some work on trauma-informed policing with her, and just an amazing social works police officer. We both love Riley so much, and but she works. I watch her. She does these, like, she'll do overnights for a couple of weeks, then she'll go this shift work where you're always horrible for you. Now, working overnights, I've not really seen a healthy model to do that, unfortunately. But
you're designed for that.
Yeah. And I did that a little bit in my career for about 6 months. And I was like, wow, it just wasn't sustainable too. So, HRV gives us a way to measure, to say, hey, when we work these people 72-hour shifts, it's just not an effective way to do it. So hopefully we can be a positive part to say, this stupid thing you've been doing for a few decades, let's stop it because you're putting people's lives at risk. That was my little soapbox on.
No, I mean, we all agree.
So I want my physician to be healthy.
That's it. I mean, that's the whole goal of this, right? Is we're trying to help people in that journey be better regardless of where they're at. So let's talk about sleep hygiene a little bit. You've talked about the amount of sleep, which is important. But what about the ritual? I think that's a good transition from you talking about overnight shifts and things like that. You may work overnight and still get a decent amount of sleep. But from a sleep hygiene standpoint, I guess one for what does that mean? And two, how do people practice it?
So great question. I love the concept of sleep hygiene. I think it gives it kind of a nice scientific
Mhm.
twitch. It's not just all, hey, I want you to get a good night's sleep, right? It's really
Yeah. What
about
does that
this
mean?
hygiene. So
Mhm.
let me give an analogy that we see in our research to say why this is important as well. Is there's a lot of comparison to a lack of sleep and being drunk. So if you don't get a good night's sleep, it's kind of like drinking a 6-pack of beer or one Jeff margarita and then going to work, which most of us would not do, and we don't encourage you to do it if you do. There's been a lot of like research about like drunk driving and tired driving, and neither of those are good things. So please do not hear me being a proponent for drunk driving. Absolutely not. Don't do it. But a lot of surveys, of this is they'll sleep deprive somebody and they'll have somebody drink a Jeff margarita or a 6-pack of beer, and then they'll put them through a driving test. And pretty much every result I've seen on this is the sleep deprived driver performs worse than the drunk driver. Again,
Is
neither
that
of those,
right? That's crazy.
yes, neither of those things are good. You
And we've
wouldn't
all
go
done that, right? I mean,
right.
you've gone on that road trip and you're like, oh,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
just do 14 hours straight. We'll get there. It'll be fine.
Absolutely.
You know,
Well,
and
and I
drive
drive
till 4 in the morning.
if you want a boring drive, Denver to Indianapolis is about the worst drive I think there is in our country to do. So, I would just stock up on the Red Bull and go right through. Granted, you don't have to make a turn the whole way. You could literally just lock your steering wheel in place and go. But, I don't do that anymore because I know it's not a
It's
safe thing.
dangerous. That's right.
The other thing just to throw in here as well is we also see that a lack of sleep is leading to early death, partly because that it's a higher occurrence of type 2 diabetes. There's been some great research out there to show that when we don't get the amount of sleep we need, and for most of us, again, that's 8 hours, we consume about 30% more calories during our day. And boy, once you know
And
that fact,
those calories don't come from carrots and
oh no.
almonds, right? They come from chips. They come from ice cream. They come
Yes,
from
they
all
do.
those kinds
High
of things,
sugar. We want, and what our brain's doing is, hey, you didn't get a good night's sleep, so give me
you
some
need
sugar
energy,
so I can be somewhat my normal.
right?
Eventually leads to type 2 diabetes because as a society, we've been depriving ourselves of sleep for years. And now we can measure early death. So 1, you look better in your bathing suit. 2, you'll live longer. Like, get some freaking sleep. Netflix will be there in the morning.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about it. And I kind of, I decided to like do Matt crazy stuff all throughout the next few episodes. I felt like stuffing all of Matt's crazy stuff into one episode, just too much for one show. So I will admit, and I will out myself here, I am not a good sleeper. Now, I practice sleep hygiene probably more than 99% of the people in the world do. And yet I've never been a great sleeper. And I married someone who's an amazing sleeper. My wife, we talked about, went back. So, extra stress. She's going to bed at 7 o'clock at night. Now she gets up at like 5:30. But the
It's
woman,
still an amazing amount of sleep.
I know, but that's what her body needs. I actually found she fell asleep at a concert once. We were at a Telluride Bluegrass Festival. Great. So we were doing all day, and we went to the after party show because you know me, Jeff. I'm not all about the party. I'm about the after party. As long as it starts at like 6:35 in the evening, because we go sleep. And we were dancing we were at an Avett Brothers concert, and we were dancing. I had to catch her because she fell asleep on the dance floor. Like the woman can
amazing.
and here I am, like the whole day rushes over me, and I'm, weird things pop into my head. It's just horrible. So when there's a few things. Let's talk about sleep hygiene. So a couple of things to check off the list is really a cool environment is good to promote sleep. If you're hot, it's one of the worst. It does horrible things to your sleep quality. So, we're getting into the fall in most places, maybe opening the window at night. When I go to a hotel room and they won't let you open the windows, I usually turn the air conditioner on to get that cool sleep. I'm also kind of a sensory guy, so I like being under a lot of covers as well. I actually bought a weighted blanket, which when it's kind of warmer out and you can't throw on all the comforters. I do like the weighted blanket. I think that's kind of a personality thing. But I know a lot of people are in that boat, and you can get,
I don't know anybody that doesn't like to have all the covers on.
I know, it just feels good to have all that. So weighted blankets for some folks with that. Also dark. In urban environments can be a little difficult. So my first Matt thing is my eye mask here. So
do you sleep with that every day?
Yes. And if you're watching the video, I'm showing it totally blacks out. So this is about my fifth one, because one, when I travel, I leave them across the country. This one is nice, and it's got little cutouts for your eyes. So I've kind of found this one. I had one, this is another kind of nerdy one, but an HRV one, is that your inner ear helps you calm. It's actually connected to your ventral vagal nerve, which we've talked about, the calming part of your autonomic nervous system. So there's ear mask with speakers. I also have a pillow with a speaker in it. Yep. And so it's got a low bass speaker, so it helps to activate the ventral vagal, which I find is really effective in helping me sleep. I usually put on an audiobook, and I find going to sleep, I can maybe get to sleep 20 minutes earlier. And I'm not really listening to it. It's just there in my ear. So that helps as well. Yeah. So
what about the folks that like to turn the TV on and fall asleep in front of the TV?
For the most part, bad idea. Now, here's my preference on all of this. If you can go to sleep and get a good 8 hours and be refreshed, you might just want to hang around out of interest to help somebody else out. Keep doing what you're doing, right? So my wife, I don't talk to her about sleep hygiene because she sleeps 10 hours a night, no problem. One of the things we see with the TV, there's a few things with that. One is there's actually some research I've seen out there to show that does decrease, actually can increase depression. I saw an article, HRV decreases quality of sleep as well. A lot of people might fall asleep to the news. You never know what's going into your brain either. Right. Maybe if you need that, make sure you set the sleep timer. So if you set it for an hour and you're always asleep, great. I mean, I wouldn't say if it works for you, change it, but I wouldn't leave the TV on all night. Now, also, let's talk about screens. So this is my other nerdy piece. For those on the videos can see me, my blue block light glasses. I think
why did this surprise me? I shouldn't be surprised by this.
I think I look like kind of a young Bono in these.
You kind of do.
My wife thinks I look absolutely ridiculous when I wear them.
She's also right.
Yeah. So if you're not watching us on video, basically, they're an orange kind of glasses. And what these do, so screens, whether it's that television, really what we got to pay attention to is cell phones,
blue light,
tablets, laptops. Those are the big ones. TVs, computers, we need to be careful of as well. But what screens emit is a blue light. Now, that blue light signals our brain that it's daytime and will offset our circadian rhythms. So melatonin will not be produced. And, we've seen if you spend some time on your phone, it takes about 45 minutes longer for you to fall asleep. That light stays in your head. So these glasses, you can get them for fairly cheap. I think I upgraded because my first ones, I think I left somewhere in a hotel room. About $30. I think you can get them for cheaper now too. And what they do is they block the light, the blue light coming out of the screen. I still, even with this, try to limit my phone, anywhere where there's a screen within about 3 to 4 feet of me. There's also blue light filters on certain phones and tablets.
Yep.
The research I've seen on those, that they're not proven effective. I usually, and I do usually read on like a Kindle, which has a good blue. I mean, thing just turns orange. And then put these on, I don't find that it disrupts my sleep. But haven't seen a whole lot of that research come out to show that those are effective as well.
And that's hard for people, I mean, at the end of your day, you got a little time, you're in bed, no kids, no work, whatever.
Play that game on your phone.
Play a game, catch it. For me, it's my time to catch up on news, or just a little bit of you time to decide what you're going to do with it, and you don't realize the impact that it has on your sleep and wellness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you talk about 45 minutes to get all that light out of your biology, but then also just the fact that you get sucked in. And so you're probably going to sleep 30 minutes or an hour later than you would had you not picked that phone up, because you're not mentally activated and or hypnotized.
And this is where, and I'm all about saving the forest, so take this with a grain of salt, but this is where magazines can come in really handy. Like, to me, and I apologize if I offend everybody, like Reader's Digest magazine that my parents would always get, kind of boring as all get out, but magazines are really great for a couple reasons. One, there's no screen. Your eyes are getting tired from reading on the page, and you're not sucked into a great book where you want to read the next chapter. So
you got to see what's coming next.
Yeah, a magazine article. I find these in hotels. I usually have like a magazine of the area that I'm in. Just reading that before bed, great thing. Trying to, it's usually screens want to be off for an hour before bed. Again, TV a little bit better because it's further away for most of us. If you're going to do a screen, the blue blocking glasses, I would highly recommend those.
So that's where the name Blue Blockers came from.
Blue blockers,
the blue light. All right, now I understand.
There you go. So a few more things, best practices out there. One is go to sleep, wake up at the same time every day. If you're like me and have problems sleeping, I have a dog who, for some reason, understands exactly what time it is.
It's incredible.
Yeah, before clocks were invented, I kind of wonder if people just use their dogs to set their clock.
The sun and their dogs.
Yes, exactly. So she's got to get her walk in before 7 o'clock every day. So that kind of helps for the most part. But what we find, and this is a pain in the butt on the weekends for those of us that try to wake up a little early, but that constant bedtime, going to sleep, that consistency for those of us that have trouble sleeping, really good. For those that have trouble sleeping, try to avoid naps. For those of you that don't have trouble sleeping, a power nap can be great for your HRV. So naps are great unless you have trouble sleeping. They don't necessarily make up for lost sleep. But I'm so jealous of these power nappers who can just conk out for 15 minutes and wake up refreshed. There's this nerdy thing out there, and I haven't seen a whole lot of research with it, but if you're like a great sleeper, that you chug a cup of coffee, go for about 20-minute nap. It takes the caffeine about 20 minutes to kick in, and you wake up ready to, take on the world. None of that works for me, but, I know that that's a biohack some people are looking at as well.
Yep.
Melatonin seems to be something that's fairly consistent in the research. You hear some things that it's not the greatest. I personally use it. Melatonin helps that circadian rhythm, know that it's about time to go to bed. If you've been watching TV you get some of that blue light. So doesn't seem to have any side effects that I've seen in the research. Now, there's always a chance 10 years from now we find something, so I'll throw that out there. But
that's humans, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like, unlike Ambien and other things, which there are some pretty negative side effects to. Plus, you might just wake up and sleep drive or do weird things in your sleep. I took Ambien for a while as a poor sleeper on road trips, and the dreams I had, I really enjoyed them. But kind of woke up and said, "Oh, who got into my brain to insert this into it?" So try to avoid those when you can. Again, a lot of negative research coming out about those with it as well. Here's kind of my last hint. and one again that I hate to give out there, the negative effects of alcohol. Alcohol can help you fall asleep, but destroys the quality of your sleep. So used to be sort of no more than 2 drinks, stop 2 hours before bed. If you put the science together, it's kind of like 1 drink and give yourself 4 hours before bed. So, you know, a lot of people, I knew my grandpa would take like a shot of vodka before he went to bed. Probably about the worst thing you could do for your sleep quality. So now my grandpa,
poor hygiene. Poor hygiene.
So, you know, take that for what it's worth. CBD, kind of some research out there, not enough ready to say, hey, go find some CBDs. But I know a lot of people, it seems to be maybe a better drug than some of the Ambiens and other things, though the research is so early on in that, you know, I think we'll know. So, you know, again, if you're having trouble sleeping, try to avoid the alcohol. As I always like to say, if you're going to drink early.
That's it.
Day drink and give yourself plenty of time to get the alcohol out of your system before your head hits that pillow. So hopefully that gives a few good things of sleep hygiene, and measure it. Like I said, that's where Pearson's Law, you know, comes in. Take, you know, if you're on our app, take a before you go to sleep and when you wake up. What sleep does for our system that's so important, it's like when your cell phone's got all those apps open and you haven't turned it off for a few weeks, it starts to slow down. Things don't open up, things don't operate as well, things have trouble connecting. You hit the reset and all of a sudden everything works like it should work. That's what sleep does for our autonomic nervous system, our brain, and really all the systems within our body. It gives us a chance to rest and recover and bring our best self to work. And your HRV should measure that. You should have more HRV in the evening than you do in the morning. If you don't, you had a really bad night of sleep. So, you know, again,
and if you know, boil down what is HRV, your ability to handle and recover from stress. And so if you've not given yourself the ability, you know, the enough recovery time, you're not going to be able to handle it. Right. And it's pretty simple, but it's hugely impactful.
Right. And again, people ask me, like when I do my self-care trainings, the one thing you can do between today and to bring your best self to work tomorrow. Now, I'd have a lot of suggestions if you want to listen to me, and we'll cover a lot of them as we go forward in this chapter. But the best thing you can do is get a good night's sleep. I mean, flat out, I've read hundreds of books. You know, it's to get for most of us that 8 hours of restorative good sleep is the best thing you can do. Now, next time we'll talk about movement, exercise. We'll talk about diet, mindfulness. We'll add some things to that list, but flat out, you know, exercise, if you're not doing anything, moving's going to help. But that 8 hours of sleep is the most powerful thing you can do. So, like I said, I know there's a lot of great TV out there, Netflix, and we got all the sports out, but that sleep, throw it on the DVR, watch it in the morning. Try to avoid some of our news cycle. I find when I watch news before I go to bed,
especially these days, it riles you up, man.
Especially these days, and I've got this favorite show I watch it that is on at 9. I've stopped it now. I have found if I do the Daily Show, so I like the 11th Hour with Brian Williams. I don't think that'll piss anybody off. I think it's a good news show, but I've switched over the Daily Show because I can laugh at least as I hear the craziness of the day. And I find it really helps my sleep. So even little tweaks like that for some of us can really help.
It's great. Great tips. Somebody tell my 1-year-old, maybe maybe that'll change things around our house. I think it's going to be time that changes things around our house. But this is good. I mean, this is a topic that we both are pretty passionate about.
Yes.
Hopefully this sheds some light on the importance and ways people can change their habits to really support their wellness, and that's going to be reflected in their HRV score. So
absolutely
good stuff. That's it. Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure. for those listening, if you're interested, optimalhrv.com. We're getting more and more folks that we're partnering with.
Yep.
Which is really exciting, a ton of fun to help people support their mission and quantify the work that they're doing. So please reach out.
If I can give a quick shout out to my friends at Ascending to Health, Homeless Respite. They did training with them last week and sat in a room they work with folks that have experienced homelessness and have also medical issues going on, usually being discharged from the hospital, and to sit in a room as all their clients came through and took HRV readings was something really cool. So I just wanted to give my friends at Ascending to Health Respite a huge shout out with that. So we were supposed to launch with them in March, and obviously COVID hit. So really excited to get that relaunch going with them. So just a huge shout out to all the amazing work they're doing. And I know for both of us, it's such an honor that our app is a part of that work. So
that's it. Yep.
Awesome.
Great stuff. Well, it was a pleasure. We'll see you next week, Matt.
Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you're interested in more information about HRV, please visit us at optimalhrv.com. Also, if you visit optimalhrv.com, you'll be able to sign up for our email list and download our free ebook, Healing with HRV. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.